So they used to call this All Fools Day. Do they still do? I'm not sure. Let's see what happens. You tell us how you feel about it. But it's Friday, April 1st, 2022. Good morning. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to it. This is AM Prime. That's how we kick things off here, around here at WESN this morning. Let's tell you what's coming down the pike. We'll be talking with Archbishop Barbara Burke. She was one of those who was out front in the call for a national holiday for the Baptist community. They got that. And more, and she says that in this week when we celebrated that just a couple of days ago, she was a UNC, she is a UNC, and she will always be. But there was this picture of her in close embrace, if you like, with the Prime Minister at one of those functions a couple of days ago. The question is, what were they discussing? What was she telling him, and what was he telling her? We'll get to that when we talk to her in the second hour. Of course, we'll take you around the region. We go to Guyana, where they're discussing matters, trying to deal with the leadership of the police service there in a situation in which there's no opposition in the parliament, in the assembly. So how they make these arrangements in accordance with the constitution of the country, we'll get to that when we look at our look around the region. Also in Jamaica, there's a discussion about the use of firearms. If someone with a weapon committed a crime with a licensed firearm, we'll get to that as well. Also, we're staying in Guyana a bit, in our second interview with our colleague Dennis Chabral on last question about how it's playing in that country. The statement by the vice president a couple of days ago that has, rippled across the Caribbean. That Trinidad and Tobago is falling apart. What are they saying in Guyana about that? Of course, we have the Newsday poll. We have the numbers with COVID-19 we'll get to in moments from now. But right now, another perpetual issue, the air bridge, the service on the air bridge between Tobago and Trinidad. Well, there's just been an announcement by the national airline, Caribbean Airways, saying that they're going to increase flights. But to what extent that will be a long-term arrangement, to what extent it will be permanent. The airline had said that its service to Tobago had to do with keeping within the limits of good business operations. And some people were calling earlier this week for the Prime Minister to intervene in the matter and increase flights, particularly around this time when we're heading up to Easter. So is the latest decision by the airline to satisfy the presumed increase in movement between Port of Spain and Scarborough for Easter, or is that more long-term? We'll talk about that and all the issues that continue to plague service between Tobago and Trinidad via the air. To help us understand that now, in the Zoom with us, a former assemblyman from the original group that started the Tobago House of Assembly, our good friend here, George Stanley Baird. Good morning. Good to see you, friend.
Good morning, Andy, and welcome good morning to all viewers. Airbridge,
Yes.
a long and outstanding matter. And in my era, we had discussions that used to be BWIA and whatnot. Let me take you back slightly.
Certainly.
There used to be a time when we had flights, maybe 2 or 3 flights a day to Tobago, back in the 50s. All right, early morning would be about 9 o'clock, and sometimes about 3 o'clock, and the last would be about 5 p.m. This has been going on for too long. In my era, yes, we were able, BWI used to serve maybe about 10 flights a day with the Viscount aircrafts and so forth. Got a little better by the 70s, but very off and on in terms of the opening up of the air bridge and sustaining the demands of those persons, business and otherwise, to Tobago. That has been a bear bug. The business community, as we know, always talk about the lack of appropriate scheduling. I believe it was back under the PP government, we were able to get some ease again, connectivity, especially for persons from Tobago who had to deal with international connections. Where we had the last flight coming into Tobago at about 11 at night and that kind of thing, which was good. I have been a victim of this present time. I needed to travel for reasons, and I called up about don't have any flights available. We can't bring you into Trinidad 28th of March, first or second. Push everything, and for medical reasons, I have to push everything back down to about the 19th, 20th of April. And this is not right. During my stint in the assembly, we were able to negotiate with the airline that at least 4 seats reserved or not sold until maybe 24 hours before persons who would have medical problems would be able to get a flight. And these are the kinds of discussions that are required. We pay for seats on international flights connecting out of UK, Europe into foreign carriers. We need to have that responsibility. We need to provide that capacity for the nationals who must travel. We've had horror stories of nurses transporting patients by helicopter. And then when they go in here, they can't get a seat back. Service in the medical field to move the patient down by helicopter, but can't get back to Tobago. So these are the kinds of issues we need.
Yeah, we're having some challenges with our connectivity here. So, but I wanted to ask whether or not the people are set out this week to say that they would intervene. They would ask the Prime Minister to intervene. Does that solve the matter?
It doesn't solve it. The President Assembly seriously needs to sit down with the airline and the government to determine how you're going to deal with movements between the islands. We've had, in some instances, you have air equipment that you utilize. We know everything is costly, but understand it's a country we're running. It's not a parlor. And it means that people have different needs of business needs and for movement between the island. So you can't just be saying, okay, we're going to sell the whole aircraft out to holiday makers. But our naval strength, our umbilical cord is in Port of Spain. So business needs to share some portion of the seats. Interconnectivity with international flights, they need to share some portion of the seat allocations, etc. You just can't hold, if it's 72 seats for holiday travel, and when holiday travel buys it out, then the rest suffer. So, but and in a more permanent way, there's many things that can be done. We have, I remember as a student in the 70s overseas, getting from New York to Washington, Eastern Airlines used to fly a schedule in the peak period that you had the shuttle, the scheduled shuttle, and also you had an add-on. So you have the Shuttle A, and then you have the service. Okay, Shuttle A leaves at 7 a.m., and you have a substitute shuttle by another aircraft during the 7 a.m. or the 7:15 a.m. So that you dependent on your peak periods, size of aircraft or number of aircraft, you need them to be able to satisfy the need. So it means we need to sit down. Business needs to sit down. John Public, let's be honest. That's a John Public issue. And there is not sufficient people participation in decision making. It is clear what was said earlier this week, that the permission has to be granted. Yeah, permission has to be granted, but what is the logic for permission to be granted? Is it to allow more holiday makers into the island? Is it to meet the needs for people, sports, students studying in Trinidad? And then the methodology of selling the seats. If you have a travel pass that you pay for at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of each month, that says, okay, if I want to travel to Trinidad on 5 occasions for the month, I should be able to buy a travel pass and submit my days of travel. All right. And be able to get that. And what that does is it's money up front for the airline before services are actually rendered. So we need to sit down and have a proper discussion as to how the air bridge functions, times of day. There's still situations where travelers, international COVID connections have to overnight, either way, even going or coming. These are things of the past, and what is annoying about the whole situation is that you will see the airline or national carrier saying we have 21 flights. I don't know if they've gone back there as yet, but we have 21 flights per week to Miami, etc. And then of those 21 flights, not one or two of those Miami flights would come through Crown Point, so that you remove the need for connectivity from Trinidad or from Tobago to Trinidad, or from Trinidad to Tobago. This is how you add pressure to already pressurized situation. If you had a Miami service, maybe twice a week, then people who would like to go to Miami will use it out of Crown Point directly to Miami and vice versa. And you do the same thing for New York and the same thing for at least Toronto. So that what you're doing, you're limiting the pressure placed on the need for air bridge seats by being innovative. Some people are going to say it's not going to be practical. You will not know if it's practical and if it will build if you don't offer it. So that these are the kinds of things we need. And we, as I say, taxpayers' money, we pay foreign carriers to bring people directly into Tobago, and yet the Tobagonian is not able to be accommodated on the air services in the island.
Yeah, and this is not strictly business. This is this is a national issue. This is an issue of importance, and of priority for people in Tobago and for people in Trinidad needing to go to Tobago, because Tobago is part of Trinidad and Tobago.
Precisely. So therefore, it is a service that requires some amendments and to try and get the kinks out of the whole thing. Can't treat it as just, oh, it's holiday makers going to the big. We live here. We experience hardships. In other words, I cannot get up this morning and say I need to get into Port of Spain. If my lawyer calls me or any such thing, I cannot get out of my house this morning, go to the airport and get a seat at least within 6 hours so that I can go and do whatever I have to do in Port of Spain. That is impossible, because the poor clerks at the counter are going to look at you and say, sir, we have no seats. And this is 2022. This is 2022. This relation and relationship, right, has gone on for 130 something years. Yet we can't get movement between, and then you have some people jump up and say, let's build a bridge. Don't need any bridge. You just need to sit down and deal with the situation and get the problems out of it.
Who are the parties who are required to sit around the table and sort of fashion something that will be comprehensively addressing this issue?
The THA, I was a former member of the THA. You get the THA to get its present membership to sit down with the airline, as well as the transport ministry, and be innovative as to how we're going to solve this problem. I mean to say, we have seen sea bridge problems. We see 2 ferries, new ferries on the run. Fine. Right? I'm not going to say it was something that should have been done with the rapidity, but we needed connectivity. And whether or not it's the best solution, you need to get the best solution. And one, in terms of the air bridge, to make sure, because that has implications for sustainable development, the tourism development, business and capacity, recreational facilities, etc. So that is it's a burning issue that needs to be addressed like yesterday.
Yeah. So if the current administration didn't think it was a high priority matter, if not necessarily priority number one, but it is right up there, they are coming to terms with that now.
Well, you say the priority. We have to ask priority on, in case of the air bridge, priority on which side? Eh? The priority on Trinidad side is that you have all the medical facilities there. So if you're looking for medical stories there, Tobago has always been looked at as a playground for Trinidad. But Tobago doesn't see Trinidad as a playground, and they see it as it's mandatory for them to go there. And you know the whole history about birth certificates and searches in the Red House and all of this. We don't have the digitalization of the public services yet to happen. We hear about it, we talk about it. But the Tobagonian has the hardship of having to travel to Trinidad to get things done. So that if you want the priority, hey, let's ask Tobago and Tobagonians how and what they would like to see. Again, that is ensuring that public participation is alive. You don't say, okay, the authorities. Who are the authorities? Do the authorities have needs to get to Tobago? Not necessarily, right? The Tobagonian has the need, or we have needs of getting to Trinidad, and that is it. And I remember in our era, even the Sea Bridge, I remember we had reached a decision. When I say we, the Tobago House of Assembly
Yes.
had reached agreement to have the Sea Bridge operated and directed or managed from Tobago, because it was the island of Tobago and its people that required the services of the Sea Bridge, not the other way around. The scheduling of Sea Bridge trips and whatnot, and their capacities, that is a matter that has been the decisions come from Port of Spain. Whether or not Tobago would like to see something done for us in a particular time, but the decision is a hand me down. You're not going to have a ferry. Who makes input? You have one board member to fight 9, and so that Tobago benefits from your decisions. Can't work, nonsense. But the THA back then under Ochoa sat and we worked out, and there was agreement. But what happened? Ochoa's administration lost the election, and nothing was said beyond that. And this is why there is need for persons to understand that many decisions and problems had solutions. But if you don't know the history of the assembly, you would believe that, boy, this thing is something can't work. Everybody ready to throw hands in the air and say can't work. Tobago can't decide how the Sea Bridge to run. It's nonsense. The Sea Bridges was created to ensure that you had the connectivity of bringing food and whatnot to Tobago. So who best can tell you when we need the capacity? The people who are in greatest need.
And in the current circumstances, we're hearing talk of a revival of what is called the jazz experience, and that itself will require some careful thinking through as to how people get back and forth.
Well, any program to try to build Tobago's economic sustainability, you must actually look at the whole question of accessibility. We've had the talk of the Turku port, which that is something I could see happening for tourism purposes, but I don't see it happening for business to have to transport goods and services from your major industrial areas in Trinidad to Turku to catch the ferry. You might as well load the ferry where the source of your items are, not have to. You want to create a bigger bear bug on your highways in moving, 10-wheelers with things to that doesn't make sense. And therefore, if we seriously if we want to see Tobago grow from a business perspective, from its being able to offer entertainment and that kind of thing for the country as a whole, we need to seriously look at what we're doing. And we have to stop talking about it and really start doing things. I always remembered when I put the Heritage Festival together, there were many doubting Thomases that it wouldn't work. We have seen it's over 30-something years or 40-something years that has been around. Mismanaged in some ways, yes. But the benefits that can accrue from something like the Heritage Festival, it's as long and wide as you can put it. It impacts on so many other spheres, education, research, and things like that. And unless we really take these situations and build them up, right, we're not doing anything. Think about our students who have to go to Trinidad, etc. They catch their royal necks in moving backward and forward.
All right.
We need to do better.
All right, my friend.
According to, I know I'm going to say something which some people may figure that I am. I am not political, but we have to fix this.
Well, thank you very much, my friend.
You have a good day, and to Trinidad and Tobago. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you very much, George Stanley Baird. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we share with you the numbers and the Newsday poll as we keep rolling here on this Friday's edition of AM Prime. Stay with us.
Say hello to the newest way to access eye care support. Say hello to Ferrera Optical Virtual Care. For the first time in TNT, you can now connect from the convenience of your home with our team of eye care professionals online. Need guidance on a vision problem or adapting to new eyewear? Book a virtual visit via FerreraOptical.com using our smart scheduler, and we'll take care of the rest. Ferrera Optical Virtual Care, connecting with you wherever you are.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. So let's take you through the numbers now. COVID-19 on this day, the 1st of April, 2022. Where are we? New positive cases, total recovered patients, the total active cases, the number of persons in hospital. And we have the Newsday poll and the questions to follow. So these are the numbers on this morning, having compiled at the end of the day yesterday, March 31st. 127,251, that's the total recovered patients. 6,859, the total active positive cases. The death toll to this point, 3,750. New positive cases reported in the 24 hours at the end of the day yesterday, 103. And 137,860, the total positive cases reported since we began the counting on March 12, 2020, up to yesterday. And 180, that's the number of persons in the parallel healthcare system being treated for COVID-19 and its derivatives. Let's take a look at the Newsday poll now. And the question is, are you satisfied with the arrangement made for the SEA exams? If so, why? If not, why not? And here's some responses. This person is saying, yes, I'm very happy. My daughter's school children were given different times to arrive based on their surnames. This helped to facilitate all COVID protocols effectively. And God is great. Another response, yes, very, very, given different time and social distances put in place. Now we continue. Well, this is the final one, the more voluminous one. They don't care whether students are prepared or not, whether they have access to education or not, pretending everything runs normal and smooth, because our tax dollars at work make sure their family business is fixed. Break the mental chains of the PNM and the UNC. How long shall they fill their pockets while we stand aside and look? That's a quote from Bob Marley, one of his songs. None but ourselves can free our minds. Get rid of the PNM and the UNC if you want real change. Emancipate yourselves from racial voting. Listen to what Philip Edward Alexander of the Progressive Empowerment Party has to offer. think about the welfare of your children and grandchildren when next you vote. Well, those are the responses to the question. And the question was, are you satisfied with the arrangement for the STA exams? If so, why? If not, why not? We got that feeling from the sentiment out there. Well, we're going to take a look at what's happening in the region at this point. Let's go to Guyana, where the Attorney General and the Minister of Legal Affairs, Mr. Anil Nandlal, was speaking in defense of the President's decision to appoint a Deputy Commissioner of Operations. Let's get the rest of the story from Guyana's news source.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal has defended the President's decision to move ahead with the appointment of Assistant Police Commissioner Clifton Hicken to act as Police Commissioner in the absence of consultation with the opposition leader and the Police Service Commission. Appearing on his weekly TV show Issues in the News last evening, the Attorney General said in the absence of an opposition leader and in the absence of a Police Service Commission, he believes the President has acted lawfully to appoint Mr. Hicken to act in the position of Police Commissioner.
A president can't abdicate his responsibility and can't allow the police force that is responsible for the national and domestic security of the country to be without an administrative head. Therefore, the law will justify a president making an appointment even though those with whom he has to consult are not available for consultation.
The President has appointed Hicken as acting police commissioner and not to the substantive position of police commissioner. The People's National Congress reform has threatened legal action, pointing out that the Constitution is clear on the process for the appointment of a police commissioner and deputies. The PNC has also raised concern about the most senior officer in the force, substantive Deputy Police Commissioner Paul Williams, being bypassed by his junior officer to act as police commissioner. Article 2116 of the Constitution references the holder of the office of Deputy Police Commissioner to be next in seniority in the police force after the Police Commissioner. But Attorney General Anil Nandlal is of the view that with no opposition leader and no Police Service Commission in place, the President needed to act.
It's no fault of the government or the President that there is no Police Service Commission, because the appointment of the Police Service Commission comes through a process which again involves consultation with the leader of the opposition, and there is no leader of the opposition.
On the issue of the Police Service Commission, the Parliamentary Committee on Appointments in December last year nominated 4 persons to be considered for the Police Service Commission. There was no action by the President on the nominations. The Constitution also states that the chairman of the commission is named following consultations between the President and the opposition leader. The office of the opposition leader only became vacant at the end of January. There were no moves for any consultation between the two on the position of the Police Service Commission chairman before that resignation. Attorney General Nandlal said the police force cannot be headless.
He is responsible for the day-to-day management and superintendence of the Guyana Police Force. Therefore, you cannot have a police force without a person performing those functions.
President Irfaan Ali has said he has acted out of necessity in his decision to appoint Assistant Commissioner Clifton Hicken as acting police commissioner. He has not explained why the most senior officer in the force was bypassed for that acting position.
All right, so we're staying in Guyana now. We're talking now with my friend and colleague, longtime associate journalist, Dennis Chabral. I'm trying to get a sense of how it's playing in Georgetown and elsewhere in that country, the statement by the country's vice president in which she made comments to the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is falling apart while he was trying to encourage the people in Guyana not to seek to want to depend on the energy windfall that they are on the brink of experiencing now. And that has created a wave of responses, not only in Trinidad, I mean, elsewhere in the Caribbean. How is it playing on the ground in Georgetown? Dennis Chabral, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to your viewers in Trinidad and across the world. The reality, Andy, is that Guyanese have been badly treated at many ports across the Caribbean, mainly Trinidad, Barbados, and to some extent Antigua and Barbuda. That goes back to a period when we had been suffering bad economic and political times in the 1970s and 80s. And even early in the 1990s, when a lot of Guyanese had traveled to those destinations to seek jobs, to also trade in a number of basic necessities such as food items and basic drugs. And also some did flout immigration rules by overstaying their time, working illegally and so on, and even engaging in other types of activities that were against the law. So there is that if you want, stigma against the Guyanese historically going to these destinations. But that has improved. Guyana have improved tremendously because of changed economic fortunes, even before oil.
Yes.
So you do not find a lot of that now, as had been the case back in those earlier periods that I referenced. So the vice president is correct to say that in the case of Guyanese being treated badly at the Piarco airport,
we're having some challenges with the connectivity.
That in both that Mr. Jagdeo is talking about the falling apart of the Trinidad economy, even though it is facing difficult times due to the volatility of oil and gas prices and the reduction in the availability of oil in Trinidad. The UN's, as you may recall, Andy, the People's Progressive Party, that's the party of which Ms.
Yeah, that's the party of Jagan.
In Trinidad and Tobago,
yeah,
have historically had a very Steopandi associated to the People's Progressive Party. So there are some when Mr. Jagdeo's statement.
But he seemed to try to walk it back, within hours of having said it, and because it appeared that he realized that it didn't come across, and what he was saying.
He was reinforcing the points that he made a day or two earlier. So I don't sense that it was a walking back.
No, so what you're saying is that he sort of justified why he used those terms, that the country is falling apart?
I'm not hearing you, Andy. You're stuck there. Repeat.
Yeah, I'm saying. So you're saying he was justifying why he used that term?
Yeah,
that
he was justifying his earlier position.
Mm-hmm. No, and why did he say that the country is falling apart? What was the basis for that? For saying that?
Context, never mind the perception in some quarters of the hidden undertones. I think he was analyzing it in the context of the fact that the dependence on oil over the years by Trinidad and Tobago, as opposed to other economic sectors, has seen that country's economic fortunes going on the downhill because of the very price volatility of oil and, of course, to some extent, natural gas.
Yeah, and it comes in the middle of, on the back of the fact that you had this major Oil and Energy Conference just a couple of weeks ago, and the narrative in Trinidad and Tobago that we weren't represented at the level that we should have, and there were these questions raised here. I mean, I wrote a column about it in the Express. I'm asking, well, where was the frontline leadership of Trinidad and Tobago in that? We were represented, we were told, but we were, for the most part, invisible to all intents and purposes. So you have that as well.
They have lost you, if you hear me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you now. And I was saying that this statement came on the back of the fact that there was a lot of discussion, conversation in Trinidad and Tobago about the fact that we weren't seen to be represented in the way that we would have liked at this major energy conference that was held in Guyana just weeks ago.
Yes, that is true. I don't know I don't know who is responsible for that, if it is the Guyana government or the Trinidad government, but clearly Dr. Keith Rowley or any of his ministers was not part of that conference.
Yeah, and that was the point being made, and that somehow we were missing in action there, although we were told after the fact that there were Trinidad and Tobago representatives, official representatives and otherwise, but people were comparing sort of the presence of the Barbados Prime Minister there and asking, well, where were we in that kind of lineup? So, and part of that narrative is that, the party or the parties in power now in Guyana and the party in power in Trinidad and Tobago.
Got a bad connection.
Yeah. Yes, you're not hearing me. I'm saying that there's a difference between, you talked about the party of the late President Jagan and the relationship between that party and the UNC. I think that's the point you were making. So there's a difference in relations between who the governing group is in Guyana now.
Historically had close ties.
Yeah. And so some of that is in the mix here, right?
Well, it would appear so. Some people are interpreting it in that way. I did ask the president of Guyana whether what was his response. And there was nothing to do with the opposition or the government in Trinidad and Tobago. He was just dealing with the straight, plain words of the vice president, and he is convinced that there is no undertone. But it's hard to separate the two, in the context of domestic politics, really.
Yeah. And then there was this other issue just months ago in which the issue of what you all, or at least the government, the administration is talking about relating to what you call local content. And again, there was an issue rising out of that with this CARICOM private sector group about this leaked email in which the matter was being discussed. So there's some irritants that are developing in our relations at the moment.
Yes, there are some irritants, and it really is hard not to go back to the history of how Guyanese were treated, whether justifiably or unjustifiably, during the period to which I referred earlier.
Yes, in the dark days of Guyanism.
Taken together, we have got to look at the broader picture, I believe, and see how we can together maximize the use of our resources, regardless of which country, what are the antecedents and all of that. Guyana now seems to be emerging as a major economic player, and no doubt can also emerge as a significant political player in the context of CARICOM affairs vis-a-vis the rest of the hemisphere and perhaps internationally. So the less division we have over this one country against the other and so on, I think we have to, we have got to put our shoulders to the wheel collectively and take advantage of the resources, or else it doesn't redound to anyone's benefit. And there are provisions in the Treaty of Chaguaramas, we're told, by at least one lawyer here in Guyana, that allows for the opting out of Guyana to certain provisions, if it were to come down to that as far as the local content is concerned.
So that is a discussion taking place, the possibility of Guyana?
Well, it has been raised by at least one lawyer who is a government member of parliament.
Yeah, and then around all of that, and on top of all of that, we still have the issue about the claim to this massive amount of Guyana's territory by Venezuela, and where the rest of the countries in the region stand, including Trinidad and Tobago. So there's lots involved in our relations here that can't be messed around with in a fundamental way, which is what I'm trying to get at.
No, and one has to take solace in the fact that CARICOM has historically endorsed Guyana's territorial sovereignty in all of its communique over the years. So while each individual member state or some in the smaller subgrouping of the OECS may have their views, at the end of the day, collectively, CARICOM has indeed come out very strongly in maintaining its respect for Guyana's sovereignty and, of course, calling attention to that at the international level.
Yeah, well, it's just about 2 years to the day that I was there after the elections in 2020. I'm longing to get my feet back on the ground there to see what is happening. In fact, the flight I came back on after covering the elections, that was the flight that, or that day, there was a flight coming from Guyana to Trinidad, and that is the flight that brought the first case of COVID-19 to Trinidad. So I was scared like hell for the first couple of weeks, thinking, well, if that person was on that flight that I was on, then I would definitely have had it. But what I'm saying is that I want to try and get a sense of the bounce and the beat of the people in GT, given what is in front of you all now with all this energy wealth that you're expecting. How are the things happening in Stabroek and in places like that?
Well, there is no real big feel of the benefit of oil, at least not yet among the average people. So the average Joe Bloggs or John Doe is not getting any big windfall in his or her pockets. And even with the war between Russia and Ukraine, across the region, governments have been taking certain measures to remove taxes on fuel and finding other creative ways. We are also seeing the rise of prices here, and that is, of course, a significant indicator of some sort of inflation. So, when matched with all the other variables, one has to be careful that one does not indeed escalate the inflation and therefore worsen conditions, even with the availability of a lot of resources from oil.
Yeah, so there are advisories about being cautious in people's attitudes and so on.
Yeah, people have been urged to temper their expectations. I mean, the fact of the matter is that when political parties are in opposition, they see the need to make all of these calls for more money and more allowances and so on. But when they're in government, they say the same things that the previous government would have been saying. So it's just a matter of politicking, and that's not new to Guyana. We have got a lot of infrastructural development going on. The price of rentals and the purchase price of economic activity, but the broad masses of people are not yet benefiting.
Yeah, let me just share a story here. One of our colleagues there, I was in touch with him a couple of days ago, and he said, well, I asked him, how are things going? And he said, how are you doing? And he said, well, among other things, I'm trying to complete an apartment or two to see to what extent we can cash in on the windfall that is coming.
Yeah, well, there are those opportunities here at various levels, whether it is for the people who are coming to work in the oil sector, or the Cubans coming to overnight so they can go to the American embassy for a permanent visa processing, or Venezuelans coming across the border. So there are always those opportunities in the hospitality and transportation sector, quite apart from oil.
Yeah, all right, go back to that. You said so Cuban nationals come to Guyana to get U.S. visas to go to the U.S. from Guyana. That's interesting.
Yes, because the Cuban embassy, as you know, has been closed for several months now due to illnesses that had been encountered by a number of the American staffers there.
Yeah.
Initially, they had been going to Colombia, but then the American embassy switched and said that anyone coming for a visa processing must come to Guyana. So the Cubans have been flocking here, and the doctors who have been authorized by the U.S. Embassy to assist in the processing of the medical part of the application have been doing brisk business. So literally, you've got hundreds of Cubans who are actually here in Guyana on a daily basis.
Yes, that's a brand new issue in the developments taking place there. But thank you very much. That's eye-opening. Dennis, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Andy. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Dennis,
Bye now.
Dennis,
take care.
Okay, take care. Dennis Chabral, long-time journalist on the ground in Georgetown, Guyana. Good friends and good colleagues. So we're going to take a break. We have the news at the top of the hour, and we continue after that. Stay with us. When we come back, Archbishop Barbara Burke. She says she's a UNC, always will be. We talk.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to the program where we're seeking to make contact with Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke. Here we're talking about what transpired on Baptist Day a couple of days ago, early in the week, the public holiday, 2 days ago, as a matter of fact. And like I said, she was seen in close embrace with the Prime Minister. They were holding hands at a function. I think it was her function that he was attending. And the question is, what were they talking about? What was she telling him? What was he telling her? Because coming out of that, she felt obligated to make a speech in which she talked about her loyalty to and her fraternity with the United National Congress, because she said it is that from that administration, led then by Basde Pandey, that the government of Trinidad and Tobago took a decision to create this holiday, which is now celebrated on March 30th every year, and that she'd been in the Senate as an independent senator talking a lot about that before it happened, and that's how it happened. And on the basis of that, another thing is that she's a UNC person. She will be, and now and always. The question is, well, how do we go forward with that? Why does she feel it necessary to make that point, to re-emphasize that point? We're trying to make contact with her, but let's go back to our look around the region. Now we go to Jamaica in this case, and there's this question about trying to amend the law, the firearms license law, to take care of when somebody with a licensed firearm shoots and kills somebody, what the protocols should be. PBC Jamaica, that's the Public Broadcasting Corporation in Jamaica, has that report. Check it out.
The risk of being apprehended while in possession of illegal firearms and ammunition outweighs the consequences. And the risk of being apprehended for use of your licensed firearm after it has been seized by the Firearm Licensing Authority is also a matter of concern. These issues and others were being debated in a parliamentary committee reviewing the new Firearms Act. The last sitting was on Tuesday. Anna K. Simpson reports on some interesting points highlighted by the members.
Government Senator Shireen Golding Campbell is suggesting that persons whose firearms have been seized be shielded from prosecution should the weapon later be used in a crime.
What is the objection to protecting a licensed firearm holder from having to go through that process if in fact he has handed and surrendered his firearm to the authority? Are we therefore saying that if something happens and that firearm goes on the street and causes some havoc on the street, that that person must now be held to defend himself, even though he has surrendered his firearm to the FLA? I find that a little unfair.
Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahou Fort, responded.
You would save and accept that we wouldn't be legislating it in the law, but you would have it under the common law naturally.
And that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but you can't. But we can't have the cake and eat it. You know, because there is no guarantee. While you can guarantee that you may not commit an offense, there is no guarantee that you may not be charged with the commission of an offense, and that is why due process says that if you're charged, you go through the process where the evidence is put, you have an opportunity to present your defense, etc., etc.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang also emphasized that it is unlikely that a person be charged if proper investigations are done.
If the man surrendered his firearm, I'm not charging him if this comes to a firearm. I'm not charging him. Nobody can charge him if the firearm is used in a felony. He cannot be charged. There's no basis to charge him. The firearm is in the firearms authority. However, when the police investigate, if he's found to be part of it, he has to be charged. But he can't be charged before that. If the investigation leads to him, or whoever it leads to, whether it is the chairman of the FLA, the executive director, investigator, officer, or somebody else, and the owner, then they are charged.
Opposition Senator Peter Bunting insisted that the police should be mandated to give receipts to persons when they seize their licensed firearms.
Can we have that some receipt is given
that's expected.
to oblige them to give some? I mean, I don't want to say we expect it, but to oblige them to give some receipt.
They must give them some receipt.
And in a standard form type of receipt.
Mrs. Malahou Fort agreed, noting that apart from benefiting the individual, this process would ensure record keeping on the side of the institution. Reporting for the news on PBC Jamaica, I am Anike Simpson.
All right, so let's come closer home now in Barbados, where there's this discussion around what is seen as an uptick in COVID-19 cases and how Barbados today is reporting that.
Health authorities today served notice that COVID-19 cases are up. At a press conference today, Senior Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Arthur Phillips, said they are closely monitoring the situation, but there will be no change in protocols at this time. He urged the public to stick to the established measures to protect themselves and prevent further spread.
So, for example, the new cases for the week ending March 27th are 40% higher than for the previous week. And the R effective, or the average number of cases generated by each person, is 1.35. So if you have 100 cases, we would expect that you would get 136 more cases following. The 7-day positivity average rate has increased from 12% to 15.9%. And the prevalence, so the number of persons in the community, the proportion of the population who have active COVID infection, also appears to be increasing. So these increases that we're seeing could reflect increased transmission due to factors around increased effective contact between individuals, as well as there may be changes in the infection that is present.
Dr. Phillips said the ministry is also investigating whether the new Omicron variant, BA2, is in Barbados.
We have selected samples which will be tested by CARPHA to facilitate sequencing and confirm the current variant situation in Barbados.
Even as authorities keep an eye on the spike in infections, they are also reporting more deaths. Chief Medical Officer, the Most Honorable Dr. Kenneth George, told the press conference the deaths were discovered after the coroner's office conducted testing on persons who died suddenly in the community.
The positive results were obtained from tests carried out by the coroner's office on the suspicion that their sudden demise may have been attributed to COVID-19. The policy of the coroner's office is to rule out COVID-19 as a likely cause of death, since autopsies cannot be performed on persons who are known to have died from or with COVID. The test results from the coroner's office has identified an additional 43 COVID-related deaths, which have occurred within the last 6 months. These persons died in communities across Barbados before being tested or assessed with appropriate care.
All right, welcome back to the program. Well, with us now by phone, Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke. She's one of the leading figures in the spiritual Baptist movement in Trinidad and Tobago. It was on the basis of her advocacy over a period of time why we celebrated, as we did on Wednesday, Spiritual Baptist Liberation, they call it. And so I was intrigued when I saw a picture of her in the paper with her hand in the hand of the Prime Minister and his hand in hers, and I was wondering what they were talking about. But after that, she went and making a statement in which she reinforced the fact as to who she is politically. She says she has been, she is, and she always will be. People used to use that phrase, PNM till the dead. Well, she's saying I'm UNC till the dead. She's with us now on the phone. Good morning, Mother.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
How are you?
I'm happy, thanks.
All right. Well, good to see you. So I was originally intrigued when I saw that picture in the paper with the Prime Minister was going into this function. Was it one of your functions? I didn't quite read what the caption said to the extent that it said anything about where it was. But you were holding his hand, he was holding yours, and you all were in a close conversation. And I was intrigued as to what were you telling him and what was he telling you?
Nothing. But I was holding his hand.
Yes. So that was just a hello, how are you, and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I thought there was some conversation taking place there. All right, but so you came out with this position as to give us a sense of why you felt it necessary to say what you said there about being UNC and you will continue to be, your loyalty remains with the UNC.
Well, they asked me a question.
Yes.
They said they thought I had gone over to the PNM. So I told them, no, discipline. If you are an archbishop, you have to be with the opposition, government, or who you have to speak to them.
Yes.
It was that you throw in and you go on with another party. You don't jump like a jumping jack. You have to be loyal to somebody.
Yes.
Even though you leave and you go with the person, they would not trust you. And you have to, people must be able to trust you as an archbishop.
Yes, so it's about consistency and about loyalty and about a principle.
I respect the head of state. He is the prime minister. We were in the parliament, and you must respect him and give him his respect.
Yes. Take us back to the time when you were in the parliament, you were in the Senate, and you said that when you began to advocate for a holiday for this faith, there were people who were telling you you're wasting your time. That's not going to happen.
Yes, they tell you that it wouldn't happen. It cannot happen. But really, if you're not persistent, it really wouldn't happen. Because in my first term in opposition, as an opposition senator, I was turned down. The holiday was turned down. And then Mr. Pandey said, if God help him and he formed the government, he would give us our holiday, which he really kept his promise. Mr. Robertson brought his 2 seats and gave it to him. And he really he fell ill. He went London, he come back. And as he come back, he called me. And then I called the other Shouter Baptists like myself. And he grant us the holiday.
Yes.
We're happy and glad for it because it was very, very sad. It's only about 2 years ago we lost one of our elders, Mother Henny, which when they arrested her, they went the search from Point 40 and placed her into it. And we were happy to have 100 years. We were happy to have her in our midst every year. We used to bring her down in the buses, or when she couldn't travel on the bus, we used to hire a car to bring her.
Yes, and then your fellow traveler at one point in that period too, the late Archbishop Randu.
Yes, Archbishop Randu were all in the struggle. And what I would say, if the Shouters, I'm not talking about those who are celebrating now, because I think they have little finance come. And you know they just get more money than me. When the government gives them 450,000, they give me 40,000. Yeah? And it don't worry me because our group accustomed meeting strugglers, and we just struggle and do what we have to do.
Yeah. So talk about some of the things that are still on the agenda for you all to accomplish. When I talked to Elder Ray Braffett, he's talking about the land in Couva and what the plans are for that, including the establishment of a Baptist cemetery and other stuff.
Well, they always had a different idea to my group.
Yes.
The group that I lead. Because they were never banned. They were never banned, you know. Always remember that they were the West Indian Sacred Order.
Yes.
And they were never banned. So what we felt, or the hardship our ancestors went through, they had their bill since in 1949. Always remember that because I have the copy of it.
Yes.
Anytime I could show you it, I have a copy. We only get our freedom in 1950 because they had said they don't use Mona room and they don't shout like us. So this is why in 1949 they got their bill.
So there's a difference between...
Yes, because they had never acknowledged, but right now they just put people to mourn and so on. But in those days, it seems like they didn't used to do it, or they were hiding doing it and not telling the truth. But they went on and get the bill in 1949. So we was always behind them with achievements. It's only the Archbishop Elton George Griffith was granted the repeal by the Honorable Albert Gomes.
Yes.
The history must be written right. The history must not be written wrong.
Well, the book that is titled... The book that is titled Where the Joy Comes in the Morning, I think that book is taken from that perspective, from Archbishop Elton Griffith coming forward, not so?
Yeah, that was a mockery of our faith, Joy Cometh in the Morning.
Yes.
Joy Cometh in the Morning didn't really give the whole truth of the problem and the atrocity that was taken upon Shouter. This was a young guy. I admire him for his effort because in those days, the elders would write anything about the struggle, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm going to make some time, and I'm going to give you a whole concept about it because I have books. And don't think the government don't do, you know, because we have an elder who is an elder in the PNN. When he opened the cathedral in Gonzales, he spoke about all the troubles we had. And I had a copy. I had attended that function. And I kept my copy up to today. I'll give you a copy of it. when the cathedral in Gonzales opened, he spoke about all the ups and downs, and beautiful. He's the only man was truthful to what happened.
So
All in Oxford Street, how people there was complaining how the Baptists is annoyance to them and they're making noise whole night. And so the constabulary got evidence saying we are a nuisance and outlawed us and put us out of existence, at least they tried. I have all the documents to that.
Yeah, because I saw in the celebrations 2 days ago, I saw a sign that said something that resonated with me because from my early boyhood days, so my grandmother was a Baptist, and there were several Baptist churches in my own village, in one village called Los Bajos, and there was a preacher, a leader of that community then, a man they called Pastor Bury, right? Bury Taylor, and so he was.
Bury Taylor belongs to the other group. I've met Bury Taylor sit down many times before he passed on and discuss a lot of things. And I asked him one or two questions.
Yeah.
Bury Taylor, that was a great man.
Yes.
But he belongs, but you know, some people, they have stamina and have the belly to go through a thing. So they will look for an easy way out. But he knows all what was going on.
Yeah, because and there were some big names at the time. So there was him, there was a man called Absalom, and there was a man called Gludd. They were from Faizabad and so on.
Harvey Gludd was the head of that same sacred order thing I'm speaking about.
Yes.
Harvey Gludd.
Yes.
As a young girl, I needed his company, knowing his rank, because he was an elder in the faith.
Yes.
I knew him.
See, yeah, so you knew most of them from that early time, and they formed this thing called the National Ecclesiastical Spiritual Baptist Council, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that sign on Wednesday, and that reminded me of, because sometimes you can't keep track of what the organization is, which one is the premier one, and so there's a sort of combination of you all from sort of different strands of the faith. Is that it? And
yes. Archbishop Stapleton, it was a few brothers, about 4 or 5. One had migrated to New York. I met him when I went up to New York. He was still alive. Stapleton. There were a few brothers.
Yes.
And they come from Archbishop Drusilla Paul. She and them used to be together. That was the mere mother, at the time, the mere of Port of Spain. That was his mother, Archbishop Drusilla Paul. Who she laid hand on me too. Archbishop Drusilla Paul laid hand on me before she passed. So.
Yeah. So, okay, so what sort of is next as you all move forward to gain even greater recognition and greater acceptance and greater understanding of this faith?
You know, as I always discuss with you, I am for education.
Yeah.
Education takes you out of poverty. So all my aspiration is obtaining a secondary school where it will make life easier for some of our children. Although in this era, we had a child pastor in charge and it was accepted, which I was so happy that the child managed to go. Because I was wondering if they didn't accept the child, what would have happened? Because we might have to go and lobby so we get to there, but they accepted the child. And I was so happy. Because you know how it is with the religion and how it goes and so on. But so far, our pastors have been very, very, this will be our 10th year since we have the school.
Yes.
And I will be publishing, I'll make sure I work assiduously with you and let you know that how our pastors went. We want to document it, although the ministry gave us copies of all our pastors. We compile them together, and then we will let Trinidad and Tobago know by getting the primary school, we did not waste time. We have a teacher there by the name of Mr. Wendell Thomas. He take those children from the inception in 2012. We had 6 children at the age to 6. And he made each one of them pass for a school. Each one got it. There was a child, the mother cried because she said she couldn't afford and the child stay home for a period of time. That child did that.
All right, so there's much work left to be done.
Yes, some work to be done. I'm going to start to speak to the Prime Minister because when we get now 10 years, it should give the shout of Baptist. Oh, no, he's dealing with a spiritual Baptist. But the shout as if he hasn't achieved anything from him.
Yeah.
And if God spare my life and I live, I wrote him many times for a meeting, and I don't know if it's permanent secretary through so with my letter, but I never get an audience with him.
Wow.
As the first Prime Minister, I never had the opportunity to get an audience, so I believe his secretaries must be dispelled away the letters. But when I write him, I'm going to publish it. So the whole of Trinidad and Tobago going to know whether I get the meeting, yes or no.
well, that takes us back to my first question, what we were discussing there, but we have to leave it there for now.
You know what? You're talking to me all in the road.
Yes.
If I'm in the office and have a meeting, you're not accepting me? No, that is not right.
All right.
You know how many letters I wrote the Prime Minister?
Yeah.
You know how many letters? And I'm going to hold him to his word. At the time he visited himself and the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, and he told me he gets into office, he will build my school. I'm going to hold him to that promise.
All right, Archbishop. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna have to leave it there, but we will continue to talk. We will continue to talk, but we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking with us and sharing what you just said there. That's a major disclosure. Thank you very much. Well, just before we go, let me just show you what's on the front pages of these papers. We have to. These are our partners in the business. Newsday this morning, Newsday Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, it's telling the story about the relief on the faces of children having written this SEA. And this is what is on the front page of the Newsday Tobago. More of the Baptist celebrations there. But just before we go, let me just tell you, there's a watch this. We want you to take a look at it. Let's just take a look at it. All right, well, before we go, let me tell you this. So there's these discussions rising about reparations. We find that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is calling for reparations. The Prime Minister of Barbados is calling for reparations. Well, my question is, what has happened with the Regional Commission on Reparations that was established after the CARICOM Summit, which was held in Port of Spain here in 2013, at which a decision had been taken to set up a regional body, and it is headed by two of the region's most prominent historians, Sir Hilary Beckles, who is Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, and Dr. Vereen Shepherd. And then on the top of that, there were these national committees for reparations set up in every country. In Trinidad and Tobago, the government at the time set up one. There was a conference in Antigua of all the national committees feeding into the regional body, at which there were some demands which were put on the table then, and that's 2013. What has happened between then and now? Those are the questions somebody should answer as we go forward with these calls for reparations. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. Also, we'll tell you that at 10 o'clock, I'll be back here with today's edition of our 10 Questions. My guest, Baliram Maharaj, a major business person who's living in Arima. So stay with us for that. But for now, thanks for watching and stay tuned. At the top of the hour, we have news, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small.